finally happening. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for showing up on this probably ever busying time of year. And the bees are resting and we're getting busier. And it is with huge, great pleasure I get to introduce you this morning to Alyssa Keene. Wave to us, Alyssa, because you're in little boxes for some folks.
Hello.
And and to talk about from writing to audio. And I wanted to start off with just a bit of a story about how Alyssa and I met. So, about the time that the Beekeeper's question was coming out, I had another friend who was releasing a book and about the same kind of thing, where she had found a small press and she was promoting it herself and getting it out there and working with Amazon. And she kept saying that she was in the closet recording her own book. And it's a lovely book. I haven't actually listened to very much of her recording, um, but I've listened to her and I thought, I don't think anybody wants to listen to 15 hours of me reading this book. So I thought I really want to do the characters justice and find the right voice. So I started asking around and I wanted to do it local because I love doing things on Whidbey and in Whidbey life. So one day I was going into a little store on the island called the Bard's Boutique, which is connected to the Summer Shakespeare Festival. And I saw the director and the director's mother. And I said, do you know anybody in the company who's still around right now who might be a good voice for my historical novel? And in unison, they shouted, Alyssa Keene. So and I had just seen Alyssa in a local production, and she was playing a Southern baker woman. So I knew she could talk Southern. And they told me that she's the dialect coach for the Island Shakespeare Company. And we went out and had coffee, and sort of the rest is history and historical fiction. So I would love, Alyssa, for you to tell us a little bit more just about the breadth of your background, and
Sure.
then we'll dive into the book.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Alyssa. Um, if you've listened to the audio version, I'm all those voices. My background is as an actor. That's what I went to college to study. I have my degree in acting with a performing arts emphasis, and I have worked professionally as an actor for 30 years now. I work primarily on stage, but I also do commercial work. And I also am a voice and speech and dialect coach. So for about 20 years, I've taught voice and speech and dialects, usually at the university level. I dialect coach all over the Pacific Northwest, mostly for stage. Um, and I have done a fair amount of voiceover, but I have never been the primary narrator in an audiobook until Christina and I met. And I said, well, I've done a lot of voiceover. I
Yep.
know how an audiobook works, but I will tell you, this will be my first
Mhm.
time as the primary person in it.
Yeah. And then we found a local sound studio right in Langley. So that was also very helpful that you didn't have to go in the city.
Yeah, I worked for many years and do still sometimes freelance at a place in Seattle called Jack Straw Cultural Center, and I helped produce podcasts and did a lot of interviews. And I was like, well, I do have a great recording studio over there that we can use and reasonable rates, but yeah, to not have to take a ferry to just drive down the road
Yeah.
was really awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And really appreciate the unending hours that David put into this project. It was, and the two of you in that kind of, I think for people who have not been in an audio studio, describe a little bit to us what it was sort of what happens. You walk in the door with a book in your hand, and then what happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes in before you walk
Right,
in the door.
right. Okay. So talk to us a little. I mean, one of the things that absolutely stuns me, and I think many people have listened to the book, is your variety of voice. Look at all those nodding heads. So, um, talk a little bit about your pre-work and what you did there.
Yeah, sure. I think I've read the book. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 times now. Um, I the first thing I did was a very quick skim just to make sure that I understood sort of what was happening generally, but um, just in terms of timeline, it's always helpful to first do sort of a quick, with my eyeballs,
Hmm.
read and go, okay, here's sort of the general story, and then to go back through and do another slow read in preparation. And so the sorts of things that I prepared, like I kept a running spreadsheet going, I'm looking at it now, um, of all the characters who show up and any descriptions that Christina has in the book about who they are that might be relevant. So that's um, age, background, um, if there's any descriptions of how someone looks, I take that into account as well, where they're from. Um, then I also kept on that same spreadsheet what I called special words, and what pages it shows up on so that I could go back and re-reference it. And then I would put in a pronunciation next to that. Um, and so I would keep that as a running list while I was doing my slow, detailed read. Um, and then as we began recording it, because for me and my voice, in terms of, the law of diminishing returns, uh, I can only keep talking nonstop for about 3 to 4 hours before I start to sound really hoarse. That's a lot of oscillations
Hmm.
of the vocal folds in a day. Is I would make notes about things that I had done in terms of characterizations, just quick little things that would help me sort of click back into a character when I would go record. Um, so, day one, when I show up, um, I came in with a paper copy, just like a photocopied version for the audio engineer so that he could make notes on that. And then I showed up with my running spreadsheet, and I actually decided that I wanted to read mine off of my e-reader because I get migraines and I have a light sensitivity. So sometimes scrolling through text and with a computer screen is not good. And the way that my e-reader is lit is sort of the best for me. So then I would keep my e-reader on a music stand. In the recording studio, it's like full of all kinds of sound baffling. So sometimes it's that like foam that looks like an egg crate, and it's also lots of blankets. And um, Dave had on the floor little tape marks on the rug of where my microphone would be set up and where my chair was set up. And I also made note the first day to make sure that I knew exactly how I wanted to sit and my sitting posture and where I would keep my water so that I could maintain that continuity of voice
Hmm.
throughout the multiple days of reading the book. And then, I mean, inside a recording studio, I always say it sounds like what it's like outside right after it's snowed, that absence, that
Hmm.
vacuum of sound. I mean, there's room tone there, but it it's that muting that snow gives you. And then there's a mic hanging in front of me, and Dave is in another room behind some glass, and we have our beverages, and we go, okay, let's see. And I can see him through a little window, and then we get going.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you come up with the different voices?
I mean, a lot of acting is mimicry. And then it's also a lot of acting is what's on the page.
Hmm.
So I obviously did it through, you know, thinking about the behaviors that people were exhibiting. And I'm a pretty visual thinker. And so I would have these pictures in my mind of these characters, and that picture would help me find the voice. In some of the, I was going to say scenes, but I guess it's really chapters.
They're both, they're scenes.
Yeah. In some of the chapters where there were, like 5 or 7 characters all talking at once, like I think one of the town meetings.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things that I would also do so that I could quickly switch back and forth is I would give myself some sort of physical anchor. So some sort of shift that would help me remember and feel in my body so that it's not just strictly intellectual, that it's physically manifested. You know, well, this person, when I speak, they have a scowl on their face, and this person, I clench my fist, and and this person, my hands go out, so that helps give me a physical trigger to change. And then, there were for certain characters, there were voices that I would listen to in terms of research to make sure that I was knowing how to pronounce words correctly. And so some of the voices that I used in my research would influence it. Um, the mimicry also comes from like people that I hear around me in the world. I think it was maybe the waitress later
Hmm.
on in the book. My sister texted me when she was listening to it, and she said, "Alyssa, you said Sunday. It's Grandma Jean." And I was like, "Yep."
Yeah, yeah.
Only my sister will know that like
Hmm.
that was me sort of calling on uh,
Hmm.
one of our grandmother's voices.
That's cool. So then I had the opportunity to listen to the tapes, to the raw files, and it was very interesting because, of course, I have voices in my head
Oh, sure.
from all those years of writing, you know. And I remember the first time that one of the little writer tricks in the book is that Leo always refers to Doc as his friend Jerry. But Alyssa goes, Jer. And I went, Jer? And then I just let it go and I thought, okay, that'll work. That's fine.
Oh,
But it's like in my head all those years, whenever I wrote that word, I heard 2 syllables. So
oh,
I
that's so
just,
funny.
it is funny. And there were several other little things like that that I just, um, it was a process of love and surrender to your interpretation of these people that I was the only one who knew them, and now you knew them and voiced them at another level. And yeah, and there were just a few times we did a little fix it up in the studio. There was one scene where I think the two men are talking, and Leo's voice and Homer's voice had gotten switched or something, and we had to go back and do a little fix. And that was actually fascinating for me to come in to the sound studio and watch you and Dave work together, and the kind of the amazing synchronicity loop that two of you were in by that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, that must be so deeply personal, especially, I mean, you worked on this novel for what, 10 years?
hmm.
To go, wait.
Yeah, wait, he didn't sound like that here.
Yeah.
But he sounded like that in your head. And yeah. So I think you told me there are 40 different voices in this book,
Yeah,
something like that.
let me look at the spreadsheet. I've still got it here. There
Yeah.
are uh Well, there are 50 characters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm. That have a line, at least one line.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. That was a lot of work. Yeah. And I think also it's very emotional to listen to it and then in a different way. I mean, I find that I can, when I'm reading, I can get tense at the right moments and I'll cry occasionally and stuff, but listening to it evokes a whole other level of participation. So,
Yeah, that was something that for me was a tricky line to walk. One of the things that I believe in as an actor, um, is that I'm a vessel for the audience to have a cathartic experience.
mm, yeah.
And so any catharsis that I might have is secondary. Um, and I think there are times when an actor can be so focused on their own catharsis that they actually rob their audience in any format of the audience having a catharsis.
Hmm.
And so there's sort of this like, I don't know, strange meta reality that I go into in terms of reading something out loud where I'm both experiencing the novel as audience and as actor.
Hmm.
And that sometimes speaking your words out loud and the like audience part of me that is listening to it is moved by it
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different way than the
Yeah.
character
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so making sure that I'm on the character's emotional journey and not on the audience's
Yeah.
is really important. Um, I mean, I can hardly I can hardly talk about the scene without welling up, but the bathing scene,
Oh, yeah.
when I read that, just to myself, I just sobbing on the couch. And so when we got to that day in the recording studio, I told Dave, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to maybe take a break sometimes. But what I'd found is I'd sort of already gotten all of that out and I was able to get through that. Um, but there were other moments that my voice would catch um, when we were recording, like, when Doc comes riding out on the wagon,
Mhm.
that there would be, certain things where, and here it goes, it happens just to think about it, where I was like, if I'm, speaking from as an omniscient narrator at this point, or if I'm speaking as Doc, this is not what's happening
Mhm.
in her
Mhm.
voice. And so I would just have to tell Dave, he could hear it and I could feel it. And I would go, oh, I just need a second. Just like take a breath, drink some water,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
move my body around, get my nervous system sort of back into a different place.
Yeah, and as a writer, I have some of those same somatic experiences, where writing a tense scene. And somebody asked me, like, how could you do that fight scene, the way that you did it? I mean, like, I've never been in that kind of scene. I've never been in a fist fight, Many girls have never punched anybody. I did a lot of rolling around on the living room floor, and even
Yeah.
taking a couch pillow and going, okay, if this is Broyne and Franklin is here and over here is Jesse and he's hurt, and I think once I asked
You
Anne if she,
blocked it. You blocked your
yeah,
scene.
I did. And I think once I asked Anne or somebody to like, could you please gently put me in a hammer lock so I can kind of, see how that would be, and is it especially for like an old Quaker girl, right? To figure out how to do that. and and then run the medical stuff by a young writer friend of mine, and looking up, I went to DuckDuckGo and prayed that nobody could track things like how do you turn a knife to stab someone directly in, you know?
You're on some FBI lists now.
Right. And wanted to wear a t-shirt that said novelist, not terrorist, you know.
Oh, I relate to that as a dialect coach because there's so much research that goes into it. And some of the things, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
look up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna
yeah,
ban some lists now.
yeah. No, but I think it isn't. Yeah, I had not used that theatrical term, but I love that I did block a bunch of scenes, and and then I also have in my body as a writer, the kind of tension or release or tears or whatever. But that was okay because I was just sitting in the corner of the living room. It's, nobody was ever going to know, but you had to really keep performing it and feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes across that your level of presence to the material. See all these nodding heads here. And it's like you were really there with the story and in the story and not just, reading the news. So that was so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there was no, here's a double negative. There was no way not to be.
Yeah, I like that.
Um, I have a dear friend from college who I have served as her on-call dialect coach. She's a very successful audiobook narrator, like,
Mm,
multiple Audie award winner,
hmm
narrator of the year. Um, and one of the things she told me when we started working together professionally past college, is she said, Alyssa, when I got into this field, I thought I was going to be reading great literature all the time. And she was like, that's not the case. I read all sorts of things,
Yeah.
and that a person ends up
hmm
reading things that are outside their
hmm
taste.
hmm
Um, and and I remember hearing that and thinking like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'd want that to be my full-time diet as
hmm
an actor. And so, when I read your novel, I was like, oh, I hit the jackpot. I hit the jackpot because I love the book. So to have the honor to read a book, to narrate a book that I absolutely loved was more than I ever dared to dream for
hmm
as an actor.
Yeah.
And um, Christina, am I remembering this correctly? Did Alina and Peggy, when they said, oh, contact Alyssa Keene, they said
Yeah.
she loves World War II?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, which is true. World War II and historical fiction is probably the genre I am most attracted to at this point in my life. Both of my grandfathers served in World War II, and I have my own, that, Christina knows this, but I have my own story that I'm working on to trace my maternal grandfather's story because he was shot down over occupied France and he escaped to safety with the help of the French underground. Um, and my grandmother kept up a 50 plus year correspondence with those families. Um, so I'm wrestling my own book, but because of what I should say is because of my family's connection, it has always been of great interest to me.
hmm
Um, and one of my first acting jobs out of college was also that I worked for a, a theater company called Living Voices, and they do usually like hour-long solo shows about significant moments in American history. And the first one that I did was a piece about World War II. So I would do a Q&A. like a little intro and then a Q&A afterwards. So I had to do a lot of research to be able to field those questions as well that I would get from audiences. Um, so it's just a subject that I have been attracted to because of personal and professional connection for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So I'd love to open it up. If people have questions or interests that they want to follow with Alyssa, that'd be great. It's a small enough group. I just think click yourself off mute and we'll take some popcorn here. Just
this is Sarah, and I wanted to ask how you learned the pronunciations of the indigenous words. Is it Blackfeet language, Christina? I'm not
the
sure.
Pakani language.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it, and then the also the voicing of those characters.
Yeah, that responsibility I did not and do not take lightly at all. Um, and there were some sound files that Christina sent me that were helpful. And then what I also did is I did the research that is the kind of research that I would typically do as a dialect coach. So I was sort of my own dialect coach. And I found some online resources that are, let's see, I'm going to look at my browser here so I'm not just trying to make my middle-aged brain remember. I found some university resources out of Canada
Mm-hmm.
that are pronunciation dictionaries. And, I also listened to some videos with native speakers who were also speaking these words. And some of the dictionaries also have phonetic transcription of it. And uh, in my years as a voice and speech teacher, I taught a lot of IPA as well. And so I would look at that, and if I couldn't find a sound sample of somebody saying the word, and I kept that in my spreadsheet of the phonetics and would use that. Now, one of the tricky things is that the source that I was using was giving me, rather than with a Montana influence, a more Northern Canadian influence. Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, no language is monolithic. There are so many different dialects that exist within it. So some of the edits that we did were to make sure that my pronunciation wasn't Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
um, was not Canadian Blackfeet, but was Montana Blackfeet, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a really big territory.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that question, I so appreciate the your subtlety of difference among voices. There's nothing exaggerated, and yet, um, it just to me, I felt like without trying to mimic somebody, you really
Mhm.
captured the feel.
Mm.
Thank you. I think, if that's sort of the marrying of the art and science of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, I, as a cis white lady, I have you know, I need to be responsible about how I voice characters that are outside my culture.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be responsible about how I coach other actors when they are voicing something that is outside their experience or inside their experience. I also advocate for, as a voiceover artist, for, if something is well outside my culture, that there are times where I need to step back and let somebody else do it.
Mm-hmm.
And to help point people to those resources, and so that they can have somebody who is more suited to doing that work to do it. And that can be the tricky thing about an audiobook because that's 50 characters.
Yeah.
And it's unusual in an audiobook that you unusual. It's unheard of that you would have 50 different people,
Yeah.
coming in to voice those things. So, um,
And
I think we had some conversations about that
yeah.
too, Christina, right?
Yeah, we did. And, I mean, Macmillan every now and then puts out a multiple cast audiobook for some really um, big bestseller type. And I actually find it a little distracting in that I appreciate more what you did with using just your own instrument of voice. And then I will be listening to you and I totally lose track of you. I that your thread through it is narration, but then all of a sudden Leo's in the room or little drummies under the table or something. So it's like, and it sometimes I go, how many people are in this room? And it's the whole scene, the stories in the room. So I see that Barbara had her hand up. You wanted to say something,
Oh,
Barbara? Thank
yeah.
you.
I haven't heard the audiobook, so I wanted to know a little about if there were any special effects, like, or sound effects, like buzzing of a bee or anything, and if so, what did that entail? How did that work?
Alyssa is a bee.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
We didn't try to bring in buzzing. Um, that we just really counted on Alyssa to bring the fullness of it. And then there's a little music intro at the opening and at the end. And at the very end of the book, at the end of the epilogue, I gave David a tape and he just brought up the voice of the bees so that it ends with this kind of round sound of happy bees. It's almost like but like in the book, the word she says, we don't sound affect it. So yeah. Other questions or comments?
Sloan has his hand up.
Sloan, yeah.
I have never participated in a conversation like this between an author and someone who's reading the book. This is incredibly rich and incredibly deep, on a heartfelt level. This is so different. It's just amazing, the two of you, the chemistry and what you're talking about. It's just incredible. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
I pinch myself regularly that the universe brought me together with Christina.
Well, I pinch myself too. So we're both a little bruised, but happy. Yeah, and the other thing now, I'm just going to say it into this little public space, is I really want Alyssa's story. And I'm just now starting to just slightly remind this incredibly talented, busy actor that the writer emerging in you is so important for us at this time. Somebody asked me in a book club I did earlier this week, so why did you write this? What was that seed? And I said I wanted a book of, quote, ordinary people who are also extraordinary, living through societal stresses and hanging on to their core selves, hanging on to their moral code. And what excites me about Alyssa's story is the same thing, is you have ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances who become what the circumstances demand from them and help get this guy out of occupied France, and we need those models. We need those modeling stories at this time to remind us of our own civility and capacity. So I'm on you, girl.
I know. No, it's good.
Other questions, comments? Jeannie.
Okay, so this is true confession. I have not made my purchase yet. the audio.
Okay.
I know I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I have gotten so emotional just listening to the two of you, and feeling what I felt when I read the book more than once
Hmm.
over the years.
Hmm.
And you need to take this show on the road, ladies. I mean, it just, this is what the gentleman said. It is so powerful. It is so rich. And it's like opening up the whole backdrop, the world that we don't get to experience.
Mm.
I'm getting choked up again. So anyhow, Merry Christmas to me. I will now today go get myself the audio. It just, I'm just so proud of both of
Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Hmm.
It's Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah, I'm with Jeannie. It's like because I read the book and did all that great emotional stuff because it just, I mean, I've been waiting for years for this bloody book to come. When is she gonna get finished? So I was so excited and bought it for other people and whatever, but it was like now I have to do the audiobook because I do listen to audiobooks a lot. And I had no appreciation for what narrators and authors go through to do an audiobook, right? And
Hmm.
yeah, so thank you for that. And
Yeah.
I think it's should take the show on the road and make people aware of, how, and also I just think that audiobooks give us another side of it, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hmm.
I agree with Sloan. I think this is just a really wonderful experience to hear the author and the narrator side. I listen to audiobooks all the time and I love this book and I loved the way that Alyssa brought these characters to life. It was really, really amazing, especially considering your first audiobook. I mean, it is really amazing. I thought it was an outstanding performance.
Hmm.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I well, I guess that there have been audiobooks for a long time, at like libraries for the blind and things
Hmm.
like that. But as a little kid on my Fisher Price record player, I would spend hours listening to, I had these like read along books and it would, go, when you hear the chime, bring, turn the page.
Yeah, I remember those.
And I would listen to those. And then I had, these LPs that were also stories as well. And I would listen to them over and over and over again. And the thing is that like language, well, there are so many languages that are not written. But when you look at the history of language, written accounts are just a little blip in the timeline
Mhm.
of it, right? And it's a wonderful way to pass it on. But language is oral and oral.
Mhm.
And so, I think there's this weird thing where people will like poo-poo the genre of, or not the genre, the format of
Mhm.
audiobooks, as if it somehow is lesser than using your eyeballs.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I have a lot of pushback on that, I mean, I think about the way that I listen to audiobooks when I go on walks or
Mm.
when I'm doing the laundry or when I'm lying in bed at night. Um, and, for me also as a person who spent so much of my career dedicated to teaching voice and investigating that, what vibration does in
Mm.
terms of impact, the vibration of a voice and the way that vibrations, this is going to sound real woo, but I promise it's science. The way that vibrations go through our cells. We use that phrase that something moved us.
Mm.
And when we hear something and it moves us, those vibrations have gone through and moved the cells in our bodies that are made up 70, percent of as water, right? Isn't that what human
Mhm.
composition is?
Mhm.
So it has an impact on us in a particular way in terms of receiving a story that way. So yeah, I'm a
I do have one question about your choice of Doc's voice because
Sure.
I was very I've listened. I first read the book, so I had my own vision and sound, but um, that was the only one that I felt like, I didn't think she was that.
Oh,
Not,
yeah.
of course, but the sound. And so I'm just because otherwise, like the whole book all across, I was like, yeah, that's it. That I kept up with it instantly about who was talking, or but Doc was the one I'm like, now who's the oh, that's Doc. So it was interesting then to say you saw Doc a different way. And then so how did you see her?
Well, I first want to know how you heard her in your mind's ear
Yes, so
before you heard the audiobook.
yes, so I heard her as like the wise woman with a strong voice, um, that never faltered. And the way I heard her in for that you presented was more of a older, crackly voiced woman. And so I thought, well, maybe you're trying um, to show her prominence through her age and also her wisdom, but that would mean that you would put her voice as a more crackly because of her age, or you know what I mean? So I was curious on that.
Yeah, and please know, like I don't take offense to that. Having
Oh,
your
no, no,
own
yeah, yeah.
version of it is fine. I'm gonna look at
Yeah.
my spreadsheet here to see if I had written anything specifically about Doc. Oh, I didn't because she's so prominent that I think I was like, oh yeah, I know this woman. I had a picture of her, in my mind, and I think that the way that she, how do I say this? The way that she was just sort of defying the expected rules of who she was going to be and how she was going to live her life, um, influenced what I did. Um, and yeah, and because she is such a huge character in the book, right? Making sure that I was doing, making adjustments for age. That was part of it. One of the things that often happens um, as we age, I'm going to get real voice nerdy on you here, is that our tissues in our vocal folds, they can do a couple of things, especially in women's anatomy, is a lot of times through hormonal changes, they will start to thicken a bit, which is sometimes why you can get deeper voices as people age, though it's interesting in some cultures, as women age, their voices go higher. Um, so I was thinking about that with her. I was also thinking about how we lose muscle tone and all the muscles that work in our body to create our voices, though we lose that muscle tone as well. And so we sometimes start to get a waver or a quaver. And I thought about the fact that like she's been living in this really dry, dusty climate for a long time. I grew up in a really dry, dusty climate. And I thought about the way that some of the women in my life sound, um, and began to and sort of when a little bit of a quaver started to seep in. And that can happen from health things as well. So yeah, your hypothesis is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that I didn't think of that quaver as being a weakness in her of her being unsure of herself. Um, but that it was sort of part of what I would call her defiant personality. That, right, there are obstacles that we meet, in defiance, and we go, nope, not going to allow this obstacle to stop me in what I want to do.
Mhm.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's interesting. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hear her differently.
There
Sure.
may have, you know what, the last thing, there may have been a little Katharine Hepburn in there.
I heard that. Yeah. 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 And the personalities are probably close. Yeah. Thank you.
Sarah Schmidt has her hand raised.
I know I've gone once already, but I think this is an extraordinary audiobook. I mean, it's an extraordinary book to start with, and I consume audiobooks like 2 a week or more sometimes.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I love audiobooks and I listen to them all the time. And I almost always listen at 1 1/4 speed. Just that's kind of a normal speaking speed as opposed
Yeah.
to kind of a reading speed. Not this one. The words to this book are so precise. Christina doesn't have an unnecessary word in there. And the combination of, the way the book's written and the way you read it, I just listening to it at the pace it was recorded is I just love every second of it. I mean, it's just really extra. I mean, I really think it should win an audio award. Um, anyway, my question was um, about editing. Like, how much editing is there between your, your daily reading and what we hear in the final?
Oh, there's a lot.
Mhm.
There's a lot. As I'm sitting there reading something, there will be word bobbles, right? Where I'll get tongue-tied or I'll have to stop and double check something. So what a thing that's very standard that a narrator will do in conjunction with their engineer, who was Dave in this
Mhm.
case, is as I'm reading along, let's see, I've got it, hmm, let's see. If I said, there was a rustle from the right front rows, poking one another into action, flipping hair back with the toss of their necks like young horses, all 10 boys, right? So if I had a stoplight there, I might say in the middle of that, I'd go, pick up, and I'd either go back to sort of where I bobbled at a natural pause, like there's a comma right before that, or I'd go back to the end, or I'm sorry, to the beginning of the first word of a sentence. And so then Dave makes a little note and he knows that he's going to have to cut that out. Or, um, a seaplane flies overhead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Or there would be a point where I would start to get hungry for lunch and it'd start to get like a stomach growl. Things like that show up that then have to be edited out. So there's all those little things. And saying pick up to the engineer gives them a nice marker so that as they're listening back through, they know like, oh, I have I have to go
glitch,
back
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they can
Yeah.
also see it visually in terms
Mhm.
of their editing software. So yeah, Dave had to do all of that. Bless him.
Yeah.
So Christina, there's 5 minutes left.
Mhm.
Sloan raised his hand first and then Barbara next.
Okay.
Alyssa, my comments are triggered by your discussion of language and vibrations moving us. I've primarily have read nonfiction, so I'm reading the story or reading the nonfiction. But to read a story, to read fiction, there's a story, but what you've given me is a different perspective. That is to listen to the vibrations and feel the vibrations. My jargon is what's the energy field. But can you say more? Can you say more about the notion of vibrations and the importance of that in listening to the book and being with the book?
I think well, I mean, um, it's the music of a story, right? If we think about the way that music moves us and what the energy of that is, right? How does something, even without lyrics, evoke something in us, right?
Yeah.
It's that sound that evokes something in us.
Yes.
Right? Those sounds that
Yes.
are like moving the little hairs in our ear that are, causing things to happen in our eardrum. I know less about the ear than I do about what happens in your larynx and your nasopharynx and all of that. But you know, vibration. Think about the way that massage works, or the way that, like, if you have a cat when they're against you and they're purring, or think about what it's like if you've
Yes.
been held or held someone else, right, like an infant, and you sing to them, right, and that they're feeling the vibration that is coming through your body, or the way that um, when you speak, if you put your hands on your chest or on your face, you feel that, or the way that your voice feels different when you have a cold because of the way that those cavities that resonate and vibrate in your head, how that changes your perception of your voice.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
Yeah.
also, I think, a cadence to the word itself. And then that when Alyssa and I had our first meeting, we talked a little bit about the book has a cadence that's embedded in the style of the writer. And that she sent me a couple of demo tapes of herself reading, pages here and there. And what really gave me confidence, like, yes, go for it, is the sense that she understood the kind of embedded cadence in the way that I wrote the book, the way the book was edited, and that somebody who came in with, like, I'm just going to do this my way, and that wasn't paying attention to the vibrational quality of the story could have ruined it. But I immediately saw her capacity to kind of get inside the written word and articulate it. So
That explanation is so helpful from both of you. Thank you.
you're
That's
welcome.
so
Yeah.
helpful.
Also, I mean, being able to talk to Christina and hear her cadence when she speaks,
Yeah.
there are, and having, a bit of her voice in my mind's ear as well is also, and was also really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I'm aware some people need to kind of check out at the end of this hour and go on in their days.
And Barbara also has had her
Mhm.
quite some time.
It's only just a quick question that so it's David Maloney, and is it Blue Sound Music, or where is this
He's on
recording?
2nd Street in Langley. It's what is the name of his studio? Something Pop. I'll give it to you. But
Someone
yeah,
wrote Blue Ewe.
yeah, I don't know what
Okay.
Dia was saying about that. But yeah, we'll get it to
Langley's
you.
Langley's navigable. I'll try to
You'll
find.
find it. I'll tell you right where it
Thank
is.
you for that suggestion, and thank you
Yeah,
for all of this.
yeah,
This process is kind of this new thing that's been happening, and this is really cool to hear your version of it. It's a lot more meaningful than I expected.
yeah. Good. So I have a quick request, people. Go out and review on Audible or Spotify, whatever, because just like it's important to me now as I continue promoting the book to be able to say I have 128 five-star reviews on Amazon. That means something to people. The same thing in the audio world is to please just leave a few sentences. The things you have said to me, meeting me in the grocery store, going, "Oh my God, I'm listening to Alyssa." Just put them out there in the audio world would be really, really beautiful.
Yeah, and the other thing that does is that feeds the algorithm in a positive way that it gets it in front of other people's eyeballs.
Right.
So if it's a story that you really like, then it pops up for them when they're, scrolling through and going, "Oh, what's the next thing that I want to listen to, or what's the next book that I want to purchase?" And they'll go, "Oh." How when you finish a book, it'll say like, "Oh, if you like this, you might also enjoy."
Yeah, yeah. And to say also that you can get it into your library systems. Our library system now has it. And that you can go into independent bookstores and ask if they have a Libro account. And if they do, they'll download it for you, pink, right there at the cash register in any independent bookstore. Barnes and Noble is carrying it. It's being carried by 35 distributors at the moment. So go find it if you haven't. And thank you so, so much. Alyssa, this is like the biggest delight. It's
it's my pleasure.
I know. It's the longest time we've had a chance to really talk about this. So thanks for being here and witnessing. Have a lovely day. And as Doc and Leo would say, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Cut the recording, Ann.
I know I need to leave you, but I don't want to. Alyssa, thank you for doing justice to Christina's book.
Oh,